What I'm discovering now that's important for writers, perhaps more than ever, is to literally, take things into their own hands and network and reach out, especially since agents and managers have sort of, in the last several years, they've started to do less and less and less.
But you strike me as someone that has thick skin, that doesn't, you're not going to be pushed around, and you've developed sort of a good head on your shoulders and a toughness. Was this always the way, or sort of these moments hazed you?
100%. Yeah, no. I had a partner who I still work with on occasion, and he came from a lineage, his father created the beloved dog Benji. And so his father came out to Hollywood with a script, and Hollywood shooed him away with that nonsense. And so he went back to Texas and said, well, to hell with it. I'm going to raise the money and make this thing myself. He came from the ad world. So he was empowered, and he just decided to make this thing. One of the first independent filmmakers ever, certainly to do what he did next, which was take that film back out to Hollywood and say, what do you think? Would you like to distribute my film? They all poo-pooed him. They all dismissed him, shooed him away. So he went back to Texas and said, well, to hell with that. I'm just going to distribute it myself. So he raised the money and put it in one theater. And of course, because he believed in it, it was a huge hit. And that gave him enough money to open it in a second and a third. So my partner was raised watching this. And so he had that sort of entrepreneurial spirit and fearlessness that I did not. My dad was a company man. So I watched my dad come in the door wearing a suit, the monkey suit from working for the man all day. So I wasn't necessarily entrepreneurial by nature. So I learned a lot of that from my partner. And then, as you say, as you go through the process of these learning points along the way, that's what girds you, and that's what sort of prepares you for the long journey. I've been doing this since I was, the actual writing and selling scripts since I was 25. And so I've been at it for 30 years now, and selling pitches and scripts and TV pilots year in and year out. There's been different business models that have come that I've had to adapt to and adjust to. I've left partnerships and had to do it on my own, taken on new partnerships, all kinds of different incarnations along the way. But there's certain things that remain the same and hold true, which is you will never ever fail if you never quit. You're only guaranteed to fail if you quit. And it's going to be incredibly difficult, and you have to believe in your ideas, and you have to, now more than ever, I'm learning.
If you are enjoying Mike's insights into screenwriting, you may also like our new book, Story Questions, the sponsor of today's video. It's a story tool that offers you over 1,500 story questions that you can use as story prompts. It's packed with over 40 categories, so whether you are in the brainstorming stages, developing characters, dialogue, or rewriting, it can help you at every stage of the writing process. We invite you to reflect on this statement. When you ask the right questions, the story almost writes itself. We've linked up to story questions in the information section below. Going back to you, Mike, what were you learning?
I used to rely on my agents and managers quite a bit. And I would wait for them to call with opportunities and with responses and what have you. And part of that was because I was never felt comfortable with self-promotion. But it's become a new world, and everybody has a website, and everybody's reachable. And collaboration is possible in a way that it didn't used to be. You can reach out to people, and the next thing you know, you're collaborating on a concept where in the old days, you wouldn't even know how to reach them, let alone, communicate with each other. So what I'm discovering now that's important for writers, perhaps more than ever, is to literally, take things into their own hands and network and reach out, especially since agents and managers have sort of, in the last several years, they've started to do less and less and less. I find that, I used to have an agent where we talked every day, spitballing ideas. He would know the pulse of the industry. He would have know who wanted what, and we'd develop a plan and go execute that thing. And it was just a very vital and kinetic relationship where good ideas could come from that dialogue that we had every day. And now I find that agents don't even really want to hear from you much. They basically, they'll take your script out and let you know if there's an offer on it. But otherwise, they certainly don't want to plan any strategy with you, and they really don't care about creative discussions that much either. So that's where managers have sort of crept in to fill that role a little bit, to have that day-to-day contact with writers. Because we do live a very solitary life sometimes. We're sort of operating out of a writer's cave, if you will. And it's nice to be able to speak to somebody who's having the power lunches, who's in the meetings at the lots, and who's well-versed in exactly what's going on, the trends, the slates, and what everybody's looking for, and how to sort of creatively train your mind and creative spirit onto what's going on. And so managers have sort of filled that space a little bit, but even so, I find that there's a lot of times where agents and managers are just simply afraid. Oftentimes they will be negative or dismissive of ideas because they don't quite get it, or they can't quite put it in a box, because these people work in a very fast-paced, environment, and they need to know very quickly what's the genre, who is there, the star role, is there IP, is there a way I can market it? And if they can't check all these boxes, regardless of what creative genius you may think you've put into this idea that was divine to you by God or the universe, they're not looking at it that way. They're looking about whether there's enough boxes checked that they can get on the phone and convince somebody that there's enough boxes checked. And so that can be frustrating, because what you're looking for is somebody who sees your heart. You put your heart on the line, hopefully. You've invested something of yourself into this creative effort. And you want somebody to tell you, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, you did wonderful work here. I think people are going to want to see that. I think people are going to be compelled by the imagery and the words and what you've done here. Now, that's a very flowery description of what every writer probably wants. And you rarely will ever get that from any representative in the history of the world. But it's true. You're an artist, and you're trying to create something for people. You want to move them. You want to touch them. I know that I do. That's why I'm passionate about it, because I want to move people, and I want to make them feel something. So you wish that you had that relationship with your representatives. A lot of times you don't. So then what do? You have to take it upon yourself to go out into the world. I'm doing it right now, actually, with a faith-based project that I have. Very small movie. It's technically I would call it an indie, and you could probably make it for $1 million, a couple $1 million, but it's clearly a faith-based movie in respect that it's about a man going, he's wandering through the valley of the shadow of death, and he is really in it, and he comes out the other side having been reborn, if you will, in a sense. So I realized, I've never done this before, but why don't I just try and reach out to the faith-based indie community and see if I can do this thing on my own? Because, agents and managers, they don't know what to do with that thing, right? So I started reaching out to people, and lo and behold, they're responding to me. And I'm realizing, I should have been doing this a long time ago. I should have been the one fighting for my own material. I believe in it. Why should I just let it sit on a shelf because some agent or manager told me that they don't know what to do with it? And so the wonderful thing about the way the world is expanding with the social media platforms and the internet and what you guys are doing here is that we all have a way of reaching out to each other now and collaborating and finding partners, finding people that can help us do what we all want to do. So it's an exciting time in that respect. And then, without belaboring the point, I'm also excited about the fact that it looks like specs might be on the comeback. Seems like there's a business model changing that could be very exciting for writers as well.
And there's platforms for faith-based material that
Yes.
maybe previously there were only just a few networks, and now there's so many.
Yes, that's the wonderful thing about it, is there's a lot more places to go, and if there's anything I've learned as well about this business, is that it is a volume game. As I mentioned earlier about all that rejection, the same goes for not necessarily rejection, but just sometimes people, they already have something similar, or they there's one reason or another, but it doesn't mean they don't love your material. They just aren't the ones to make it. And you have to learn how to not take that personally, you know? You have to understand this is a business, and there's different reasons that people perhaps might not want to move forward with you on a project. And so all that means is you just have to find the person or entity that is right for you by continuing the search, continuing to put yourself out there, continuing the outreach, and just keep going, you know, is the bottom line. You just have to keep going.